Hi everyone, Mike Forster here and welcome back to Depression Quest Part 7. And before I begin, just a quick shout out to all of those who are watching this series. I'm well aware, this isn't a big game. This isn't something mainstream that a lot of people are going to get behind. But I'm getting some views, and bearing in mind I'm a new channel, some is better than none. So I appreciate every one of you that's checking this out, and if you want to drop your name in the comments below, I'll make sure to give you a shout out in the next video. Okay, that being said, let's move on. So it's a chilly Thursday night and we've just gotten off work. This has felt like one of the longest days you've faced in recent memory. Even though nothing exceptional has happened, a ton of minor things kept going wrong and co-workers had tried your patience throughout the day. You considered leaving work early. I wish I had the choice. But the last thing you wanted to do was deal with your insufferable boss on top of everything else. Well, he might have flexi time, I don't know. You're lost in thought on the commute home. I don't. And your feelings of frustration both with your life and the world around you build as you run into minor annoyances like someone bumping into you really hard as they walk by. I'm not sure that's just a minor annoyance. I suppose it depends if they did it on purpose or not, but... By the time you get home you're exhausted, and remember that these feelings were ones you identified as a negative feedback loop with your therapist. Yeah, because negative thoughts and emotions lead to negative behaviour, lead to tiredness, and it's like a cycle. These pent-up feelings aren't dying down and are eating away at you. You open your front door and stare at your apartment. An overwhelming feeling of exhaustion comes over you. Like you feel your energy levels are low enough that you'll likely settle into a single activity tonight. So what do? Well, we can't shake off our bad mood. Do we reach out to someone close to us, or do we distract ourselves? Now, we are currently moderately depressed, so we've been a lot worse, but we are finding it hard to focus on anything. So that tells me that distracting ourselves might not work. So in that case, I'm going to go with reach out to someone close to us. Because if you've been watching the last couple of episodes, we have actually begun semi-regularly talking to people about how we're feeling. And that has really helped us. So yeah, let's go for it. Your head feels too noisy and you need to trade it for some actual conversation. You know what? Just on a little side note, it's amazing how often I've told people when I do mental health speaking and that kind of stuff within my workplace, how good it is to talk to somebody else about rubbish. It can be about anything at all, but if you're lost in your own head, you go and speak to somebody about anything. It could be about the weather, it could be about what they did last night, anything at all, but it gets you out of your own head. At least I've found that from my experience. So, your therapist did say that it was important to reach out to your support network, so you might as well give it a shot. Absolutely. Who do you call? Oh, I so wanted to do the Ghostbusters thing there. Yeah, restrain yourself, Michael. This isn't that type of game. Right. Your co-worker Sam, he's friendly. No, he's the one who tried to give us a cat. No, he was really bullish about that. No. Your mother, nah, because she doesn't understand us. Nah, I'm not going there. Alex, she's your girlfriend. Well, that's the obvious choice. Malcolm, he's family and fun to talk to. Well, we lied to Malcolm last time about how, when we went to the dentist and about how we were feeling and all that, because, we didn't want to continuously carry on the feeling of... I guess we weren't sure how he would react, whereas we know how Alex is going to react. So, to be honest, I think I'm going to go with Alex. You dial Alex, who picks up after only 2 rings. You ask if she has time to talk, and she tells you she's just hanging around in her PJs and is actually somewhat bored for once, due to being caught up on coursework. You try to figure out where to start with how you're feeling, and are overcome with missing her face. Oh, bless him. You ask if she feels like grabbing some dinner, and you notice her barely contained surprise and delight on the other end of the line. Oh, that's lovely. You meet about half an hour later at an inexpensive diner not far from your apartment. While the food isn't great, you're surprised by how much your mood seems to have elevated just being in her company. Oh. While at first you were extremely hesitant to talk about your job situation, for fear of being burdensome or sounding like a whiner, you see her listening intently to you with what even seems to be genuine concern. Well, of course she's concerned. She's your girlfriend, man. After winding down with a beer, you cautiously open up a little bit more about your feelings surrounding your job and how it drains you and leaves you feeling like you're just existing and selling days of your life for no real purpose. You surprise yourself when you start talking about your frustration and how stymied you feel by your job, about how you used to feel passionately about things, but feel like all of your energy and capacity for creativity is getting leached out of you each and every day. You can't remember how long it's been since you've externalized this much raw emotion. Probably way back in episode 1 when you got drunk and you told all your friends about it and brought the whole room together. The two of you spent several hours in that diner booth, long after your half-eaten food was cleared and the waitress stopped refilling your coffee cups. As you get up to leave, a sudden wave of self-consciousness washes over you and you suddenly feel incredibly awkward. Then Alex stands up and grabs you tightly round your waist. You realise that, short of boring her with your seemingly endless rants, she's simply happy to have gotten a chance to spend real time with you. Wow. That's actually lovely, because you know they've had a good chat. He hasn't just talked about how he's felt. You know that they've shared that experience together, and Alex is obviously worried about him. She has been all the way through this, and yes, she doesn't always say that, but somebody who has depression, their partner is going to be worried, and they're not always going to say that for fear of making the person upset. So the fact that he's come to her with this, you know, he's not going really down and really sad. He's just being honest. He's saying, look, I'm not happy in my job. And you know, maybe, well, I guess we all have those conversations at some point. It's just our protagonist seems to think that that conversation could be burdensome to Alex. But of course it isn't. It's just a general conversation we all have. But again, that's the way depression, anxiety, that kind of stuff, it makes you feel like talking can be burdensome to other people. But no, Alex has given him the comfort he needs here, and he's realised he can have these conversations without worrying so much. That's great, I love it. It's been, by all accounts, incredibly too long since you've allowed yourself to open up like this, and there's an almost palpable feeling of closeness you allow yourself to hold on to as you go to bed that night. That's lovely, I love that. It is an utterly nondescript Wednesday afternoon, so we've skipped forward sort of a week really. The type of afternoon that would completely fade from memory unless one made an active effort to preserve it. As has become routine on Wednesdays, you are sitting on the couch in Dr. Melville's office. To your mild surprise, she begins the session by breaking her characteristic therapist silence and begins speaking up right away. I'm laughing there because as a trainee counsellor myself, we are told to be silent and to be quiet a lot. So, you know, it's something that takes you a while to get used to, because you may not have noticed it yourselves, but, well, you'll have all had awkward silences. Yeah, as a counsellor and a therapist, you've got to learn for that silence not to be awkward. It takes a bit of practice. Anyway, she wanted to start by saying, I think it's great that you decided to come to see me. It's an incredibly important first step. I wanted to take some time today to talk to you about the possibility of supplementing or substituting your treatment with medication. Okay. The mention of medication makes your ears perk up and feel your heart rate increasing. See, there's a stigma around medication as well, isn't there, for depression and anxiety? The medication I was on, sertraline, it is an antidepressant. There's many different types of antidepressants, but depression, it's a chemical imbalance in your brain, and the idea of the medication is it resolves that chemical imbalance. But personally, from my perspective, I was on medication whilst also going through counselling myself, and I felt that having both of that really worked. Then when the counselling finished, for the next couple of months I stayed on the medication and, weaned myself off. I've now been medication free for about 2 months, I think, and, I'm doing great. So let's plod on. Many people find adding a pharmacological element to their treatment to be very helpful, and some even prefer to take drugs, completely eliminating their need to visit a therapist at all, providing you rely on your support network and are still reaching out to people. Now that's the key. I would never advise just taking the medication without any sort of support at all. It's not up to me to advise anyway, I'm not qualified, but in my opinion, if you are going to be on medication for depression or anxiety, make sure you've got a good network of friends, you're still seeing a counsellor if you wish to, just make sure you've got somebody to talk to as well, because you do need that, you really do. And the counsellor continues with, I would prefer it if we kept talking should you choose to start medication, so that I can monitor your progress and adjust as needed, but the choice is ultimately yours. I just wanted to run the option by you to gauge what your thoughts on the matter might be. So Dr. Melville has just given you a lot to think about. What do you do? Well, personally, if I was confronted with this situation, I would ask for a little bit of time and to maybe come back next week and give my answer at that point. But I don't think we've got that option here. So we've got accept a prescription as a way to augment the therapy, so prescription alongside therapy. Tell her you'd like to try the drugs instead of therapy because you've been uncomfortable. Tell her the thought of messing with your brain chemicals makes you uneasy, you'll stick with therapy. Or this whole therapy thing has always overwhelmed you and this is the final straw, you're done with both. No, because we've noticed that we are moderately depressed ever since we started therapy for the most part. Before that we were severely depressed, and that means we've seen an improvement. So we are not going to say we're done with both. We're not going to say we just want drugs instead of therapy, because that's not the right move either. I would say we accept the prescription alongside the therapy. You think the matter over long and hard. It's strange to think that recently none of this sort of thing was even on the radar, and here you are now being asked to make a decision about it. You're both sceptical and nervous, still getting over the initial shock of just talking to a therapist. That's understandable. Still, over the years you've done enough entry-level reading on the subject to know that if it doesn't help, at least it probably won't hurt, right? After an intense and protracted period of internal vacillation, you decide to bite the bullet and go for it. You tell Dr. Melville that you'd like to try medication in addition to the therapy, and you spend about half an hour going over what you'll be taking and what you should expect. Thinking back on the decision later, you're pretty sure you had your fists tightly clenched the whole way through. Okay, before we move on, I'll call that an episode, guys. Again, thank you all for tuning into this series. If you've enjoyed this video, please drop it a like, because the whole YouTube thing, if videos get likes, more people see them and all that lark. I'm sure you all know that. And wishing you good health and well-being. I will see you in the next episode. Bye bye.